In this short video, I thought I would cover whether or not I think the Operation Breakout weapons case is going to be a good investment, whether it be short term or long term. And in total honesty, the answer kind of sways either way. It really depends on what you want out of it. If we currently pull up the Operation Breakout weapon case listing at the moment, you can see as of pretty recently it actually sold at the highest point it had ever sold previously, almost at the same price as it was selling on the day it was released, at just over £4. And you can see there is a continuous upwards trend for this case, and it's reaching into the higher tier priced cases. The reason for this is it's the only case that exists where the only exceedingly rare item you get is a butterfly knife, which is the highest tier knife, I guess you could say, that you can get. It's worth the most money across the board, and it's probably one of the most desirable knives that are in all CSGO cases, and that is probably the primary reason as to why this case has become so expensive. So there's a few different factors you have to look into when you're considering whether or not it's going to be a good investment. First of all, we're probably coming up to a CSGO new operation dropping. Usually that drives a dip in the marketplace, and as you can see that's actually already kind of happening here, because usually it begins in the last 3 months of the year. That's how it's been the last 3 times, and usually it occurs just after a major. The major has just finished, so we're probably going to be seeing an operation dropping soon. And historically across the board, when an operation drops, the general price of all cases falls because most people are interested in and putting money towards operations, operation cases, operation stars. So in that sense, it wouldn't be a good short-term investment, because when that happens, I expect the prices of these are going to fall slightly further. Around 200, 300 of them are kind of selling per day, and you can see a good amount of them are currently getting listed with the bulk price kind of sitting at around 368 and the cheapest at 348. So I can see the price kind of fluctuating upwards over the next coming couple of days, couple of weeks potentially, on the lead up to the operation. So I guess in the short term it's likely looking like it's going to be going up. Then when the operation drops, I assume it will be going back down. Then when the operation's over, I assume it will be going back up again. That's usually the way that it kind of works in turn with everything that goes on. So I think that will probably be the direction it will take over the short period. And when I said I think the investment won't be too strong in the long term, kind of comes down to the actual skins that are within the case. And the reason for that being the covert skins, which are like the second rarest ones that you can get. The P90 Asimov in factory new, which is one of the reds in the case, currently only sells for £32, and in factory new stat track it's only around 133, which is quite low for a factory new stat track covert skin. And the same with the other covert skin that's in the case, which is the M4 Cyrex. In factory new it's only £28, and in factory new stat track it's only £87. The cheapest knife that you can get from this case would be a butterfly knife scorched in well worn. All of these are Steam prices, but those currently go for around £456. And the reason why I think this is going to be kind of a negative towards the long-term growth of this case is because usually cases that do well in the long run, the covert skins have to be somewhat desirable. I would say obviously the P90 Asimov is kind of the more desirable skin in there, but when you really look at the odds of actually opening these skins, it's way less likely. So a covert obviously has kind of around a 0.83% chance of dropping, so it's quite unlikely that you'd end up getting one of those. And the same with the actual knife itself. The reason why this case is so expensive, you've only got a 0.3% chance of pulling one of those, so the odds aren't really in your favor. The best thing that you can get is on a 0.3% chance, so that's why I think the Operation Breakout weapon case is struggling to kind of break past the price it's currently at. I can see it happening because it's still at a price where people can bulk buy and do bulk openings, if you have the money to do something like that. So I can see the price increasing in the long run because it's a guaranteed butterfly knife that you can get from this case. But again, on the flip side of that, something that has a negative influence on that is there are other cases that you can get butterfly knives in. It's a slightly lower chance because they also have other knives in the drop pool, but there are cases like the Dreams and Nightmares case, the Operation Riptide case, the Spectrum case, and the Spectrum 2 case, I believe. They all also drop butterfly knives in those cases. So if we take a quick look here on csgostash.com, it kind of breaks it all down in a little bit more detail just so it's easier to kind of digest. As I mentioned, the 2 covert skins, which are the M4 and the Asimov, average prices between 30 to 90 in StatTrack and 12 to 126 in StatTrack, so the prices aren't that strong for factory new StatTrack skins, as you can see, which kind of makes the case less desirable in the sense of you're more likely to get one of these, which basically just means you're going to make less of a return on investment when you decide to open them. People are really opening these for the butterfly knives, which you've only got a 0.3% chance of actually opening. When you go a little bit further down, you can also see the classified skins, which again you've got a very low chance of actually pulling. They're really not worth too much, so the skins in this case in general aren't that desirable, which is why it's struggling at the price point it's at. And when you actually take a look at the finishes that are available through the butterfly knives, you can kind of see why the price point's raised up to the point that it's at, because on average they kind of sit between like 1,500, I would say, kind of across the board, maybe slightly lower than that. Maybe you could say around 1,000 is kind of the average price across the board. That's Steam market prices also. Whereas if we quickly compare this to the Dreams and Nightmares knives that you can get, if I just quickly find the butterfly knives on here, they kind of sit around a very similar price point, but personally I would say they have fairly slightly more desirable finishes, at least in some instances. For example, that you can get Dopplers, so you can get sapphires, rubies, emeralds, which is always nice. You've also got the Law, which is a classic looking butterfly knife, the Autotronic, so it's a completely different set of butterfly knives that you can get from this case, but obviously you've got an even lower chance of actually getting a butterfly knife if you manage to hit the 0.3% chance of getting a knife either way, because there's all these other knives in here that you can also get, which I think kind of drives down the price of the Dreams and Nightmares cases slightly, because there are knives in here that you can get that are really not worth too much at all. So that's, I guess, where it kind of sits. It's a good, I guess, short-term investment, at least I think personally, and maybe a good long-term investment, but I think it's at a pretty strong price point. I can see it going up slightly more in the future, but unless something crazy happens and people start doing large case openings, or the price drops down considerably and then people buy up a lot of the cases, which would then in turn cause the price to raise back up significantly, I can't see there being a lot of movement on the price as of where it is. I think the max it could get to maybe in the long run would be between £5 and £10. I may eat my words on that, it may go down, it may go up, but that's personally where I kind of see it going.